What is shakin', Internet? This is Salts bringing you the How to Tank for Dummies, Thok the Bloodthirsty guide. Thok, or the Dinosaur/Devilsaur boss, is the 11th boss in the Siege of Orgrimmar raid instance, and the third and final boss for the third quarter LFR instance named the Underhold. For those of you in queue or fighting trash, a quick synopsis. Tank Thok with his side to the raid, not his tail. Off-tank should stand with DPS out of the frontal or rear cone, and swap tanks at 3 stacks of whatever debuff the boss is dishing out at the time. Move Thok when fire void zones are being placed, but otherwise keep him steady. When the boss switches to phase 2, run away if you get fixated on, and go kill the ad, the jailer that spawns. Okay, let's start on the real guide for dummies. You'll have to kill a variety of mobs in the arena before Thok breaks out and can be attacked. The Yeti that runs around like crazy is annoying, but generally most of the stuff here is pretty easy to tank. Be careful as the pterodactyls do quite a bit of damage, but most of the trash is pretty simple and only have a single move to avoid or watch out for, like a cone or like a void zone, or just don't stand and stuff. Very easy, normal stuff. You should not have a problem if you've made it this far. Now, Thok himself is a pretty simple encounter for tanks, although it sounds a little bit more complicated than it actually is. Basically, he has a phase 1 where he'll do about 4 moves. Then, when he gets low enough, you'll switch to phase 2, where he'll fixate on random raid members and hunt them down. Phase 2 will end once you kill an ad that spawns, loot his key, and open one of the 3 cages around the room, because Thok will then go eat that NPC and change his abilities slightly. Lucky for you, his changing abilities generally mean nothing overall as a tank. Let's start with phase 1 and the basic abilities Thok starts with. Now, Thok will start casting Fearsome Roar very frequently, which is a frontal cone attack that stacks a bad debuff on you. This debuff will change over the fight, but the basic premise is that you'll take more damage the more stacks you get. Preferably, you'll want to switch tanks at about 3 stacks of this, and make sure it doesn't ever get to 5 stacks, because this will result in bad things happening. Tail Lash is a move that he should never use if you're tanking correctly. It does damage in a cone behind the boss, and stuns anyone it hits. Make sure the boss is facing his side to the raid so that the front and back cones don't affect anyone, except for you. And yes, I know it's LFR, so someone is bound to be standing back there or in front of him anyway. Just do what you can. Shock Blast does damage to random raiders. It also changes over the course of the fight into a Freezing Tomb, a Poison DOT, and a Fire's Void Zone Maker. These generally don't concern you, but if you're not actively tanking, be sure to attack anyone trapped in ice to free them, and don't stand in fire. Don't stand in fire. You generally don't have to move Thok at all, except when he starts putting down the fiery void zones. Your raid can stack up on Thok's side for most of the fight, but when he puts down the fire void zones, you'll have to move, so you'll have to move with them as well. Luckily, this will only happen during one of the phase 1s, so you should know when this starts happening because of all the fire moves that are going on. The last move that Thok does is Deafening Screech, which is just a raid-wide damaging spell that you can't do anything about. Over the course of phase 1, he will continuously cast this more frequently, which does more and more raid-wide damage. Now, to end phase 1 in normal mode, a certain amount of raiders must be at 50% health or lower and standing close together. They made this slightly easier and more predictable in LFR because he will switch to phase 2 at 80%, 55%, and 30% health. Now, you need to watch for these switches and be prepared. So to recap phase 1, face the boss's side to the raid, move him if he drops void zones on the raiders, and swap tanks at 3 stacks of whatever debuff he's applying. In phase 2, he'll fixate on a random raider and start moving towards them kind of slowly. An ad will spawn in the arena called a jailer. This jailer does pretty much nothing besides basic attacks, so go tank him and kill him quickly. Once he's dead, you can loot a key off of him, which will open any of the 3 cages in the arena. Anyone can loot the key and then open any of the cages. Once the cages open, an NPC will come out and Thok will notice his new snack, coming over and gobbling them up. Once he's eaten the NPC, he'll switch back to phase 1 and change his moves very slightly. This is a very easy phase because all you have to do is go kill the jailer and open a cage. Thok will be busy fixated on a random raider, but do be careful as he'll increase his speed as time goes on, so you can't just stay in this phase indefinitely. Also note that getting in front of Thok while he runs around towards his raider, towards his target, is really bad because he will do massive damage to you and anybody in a frontal cone attack. So if you're tanking the jailer, make sure the group is not in Thok's way. Even if not tanking the jailer, stay out of Thok's way. Depending on which cage you open, the boss will slightly change his moves in Phase 1. So let's go ahead and cover them briefly, although they aren't really that drastic for you. Now, Akalik is the Sorok, and he is the one in the north cage. He adds poisony/earth attacks to the boss. Gorai is the Jinyu, and he is in the western cage to add water/ice attacks to the boss. Montak is the Yongol in the southern cage that adds fire to the boss. Now, without eating anyone, Thok's frontal cone attack stacks a debuff on you that increases damage you take by 25% per stack. Might be slightly lower in LFR. If Akalik is freed, this switches to a 20% armor reduction. So instead of taking 25% extra damage, you get 20% less armor per stack. If Gorai is freed, this changes to a DOT that freezes you at 5 stacks. If Montak is freed, this changes to a fire DOT. The premise is the same for all of them. Switch tanks at 3 stacks. The freezing one is really bad if you let it get to 5 stacks, so avoid that at all costs. And if you get the 100% armor debuff, it's also pretty bad. Thok's Shock Blast is the random nuke he'll put on people. If Akalik, that sounds like alcoholic. But if Akalik, the Sorok, is eaten, it switches to a long DOT, long nature DOT, whatever. If Gorai is freed, it turns into a DOT that will freeze people that get enough stacks of it. If Montak is freed, then it changes to a fire void zones that we've already discussed. Overall, the mechanics don't change much. The void zones cause spatial problems, and the freezing thing is bad if you're unlucky, but the main idea doesn't change at all. A final note is that to open these cages you'll have to loot the jailer after you kill him. To make this phase end quickly so you can get back to the killing of Thok, I suggest tanking the jailer close to the cage you're going to open. If you have full control over this, which as a tank you normally do, I would start on the north with Akalik, the Sorok, that adds the nature stuff, then west with Gorai, the Jinyu, that adds the ice and frozen stuff, then south with Montak, who adds the fire stuff. It'll be earth/poison, then ice, then fire. The quicker you can open the cage, the faster the raid can go back to killing Thok, and stop having to run around after he's fixated on. And that's all there is to this fight, so let's go ahead and recap. In Phase 1, face the boss's side to the raid and swap tanks at 3 stacks, moving him if there is fire on the ground. In Phase 2, go kill the ad and run away from the boss if you're fixated on. Free one of the NPCs to go back to Phase 1. Rinse, repeat, several times. Now, I hope you enjoyed this quick and easy guide for dummies. Please like, favorite, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and, as always, you keep it salty, Internet.